This episode is brought to you by JoJo, an AI virtual recruiter powered by Sprockets. Designed for the hourly workforce, JoJo works 24/7 to source, screen, and schedule interviews with the best applicants for your business. JoJo helps reduce employee turnover and time spent hiring so you and your team can focus on other important tasks. To learn more, head to sprockets.ai/JoJo.
Katie and Shelly, thanks so much for coming on the Hourly Podcast. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Tell us, maybe start with Katie and then go to Shelly, who you are, what you do, and what amazing organization you're from.
Yeah, so I am a talent recruiter for Red Robin. I've been there for about a year and a half now, so very excited to be on the podcast and be with Red Robin.
Love it. Then Shelly.
So I'm the head of talent acquisition here at Red Robin. Been with the company for just about the same time as Katie, about a year and a half. So super excited to be on the podcast today.
I love it. And Shelly, where were you before Red Robin?
A little here and there. So before I was with Kava doing something similar, I had a talent there. And then prior to that, I did some employment branding work with Benihana Concepts. And prior to that, Blooming Brands Concepts.
So a little bit of everything.
Katie.
Yeah. So Katie, same thing for you? Or where were you before?
Yeah, so I was actually in operations when I very first started out. Started out as a host, worked my way up, left to go do some retail operations for a couple of years, and then started out in talent acquisition with Kava, and then now Red Robin.
Very nice. So, going from a brand like Kava to Red Robin, talk to me about some of the things that struck you very early on that may have been different or special about Red Robin.
Yeah, Shelly, do you want to go first?
Sure. It's Red Robin's a very traditional brand, which is really cool in so many different ways. They've got a lot of tenure within the organization, a lot of people that are very loyal to the brand and a loyal customer base as well. Where Kava, was an up and coming brand. So very exciting, very different level of excitement. We're kind of reinventing the way that we do things at Red Robin. So that's a joy. Whereas with Kava, it was just a joy kind of putting systems and processes together. So similar in some ways and different in others.
Yeah. And then Katie, when you first joined the company, was there any nuance or special things you learned kind of in your first couple of weeks that surprised you in any way?
I don't know that surprise is the right word, but I was very excited to learn and see how operations focused Red Robin is. So much so with listening to feedback from the field leaders and not saying, oh no, we don't want to hear it. So I was very excited to hear that and learn that they're very operations focused, especially coming from that world myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for our listeners that may not be familiar with Red Robin, although I suspect many of them are, talk to us a little bit about the hourly staff. How many people are each location? What types of people do you look for? Just give us like the ones and zeros so that when we talk specifics, they kind of have the lay of the land.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So each Red Robin has anywhere between low end 35 to 75 employees from an hourly perspective. From a good fit perspective for Red Robin, we just look for good personalities. You don't have to have experience. You don't have to bring a ton of skills to the table. We teach and develop that in our people, but just looking for fun, good attitudes. Katie, would you agree?
Yeah, 100% agree. You bring the great personality, we'll teach you the rest. So
I got it. And what's interesting is 35 to 75. One, that's a big range, right? And two, that's big for a QSR, right? We just had some people on from Domino's. We had some people on from other brands that it's more the 15 to 25 locations, right? So why so big within a Red Robin? Am I missing something? Is it people heavy? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so we're actually full service. So we offer full liquor and bar, so a full service sit down operation. And that, it can vary depending on the size of the Red Robin. Some Red Robins might, do, I'm just throwing figures out there, 2.5 million a year. Some might do, 10 million a year. So it really just depends on the size of the location.
Got it. And so with that too, I'm sure there's a diversity of job descriptions. that make things a little bit more challenging, right? So you have people who do X at the locations and then Y, then when you are looking kind of at the entry level role, when somebody applies, you have a culture of kind of fitting them into the right position, or do people typically find the right path on their own?
Gosh, that's a good one. I would say it's a bit of a mix, wouldn't you, Katie?
I would agree.
It's a bit
And
of
give
a
me an
mix.
example. Give me an example of one, just for our listeners.
Some people come in and they're like, you know what? I really want to rock the kitchen. I want to be on the grill. I think that's creative and fun. Where others are like, yeah, no thanks. I'd rather be, out front talking to people. So it really just depends on the person and what they're looking for. And then we kind of groom, the skill set from there.
Because I'm sure like one of the advantages of that is it's easier to find places if somebody's unhappy in their current role. So like a big challenge, as you know, and at least in quick service restaurant, is if somebody starts they don't like it, there's not many options. It's like you're either doing the drive-through window or you're not going to work here, leading to 150% turnover and all these expensive things to try and replace people. But I think one of the advantages that you have is not just the vertical opportunities, which I'm sure we'll get into, but the horizontal ones as well. Is that kind of baked into like your strategy? How do you think about that?
Yeah, there's so many ways that you could go. So we see some people that come in and they might be like, and Katie, correct me if you feel differently. They might come in and be like, I want to be a line cook. And then they're like, yeah, not so much. I want to learn some of the front of the house and be a little more social. And so to your point, because we have a variety of different positions, they might be able to do to go, or they might be able to bartend to kind of try a little bit of both of the worlds. So I think that definitely gives us a competitive edge.
Yeah, I love that. And talk to me a little bit, Katie, about maybe the vertical opportunities too. So if somebody starts working there, what programs do you have in place, and any success stories you might be able to share of somebody who starts there and somewhere differently?
Yeah. So, I mean, just throughout my career in restaurants, I've seen people, especially in full service, start out as like that host and work their way up to go. And then, because I mean, there's different ages for different things in certain states. So they go from host to go, and then bartender, server, to an hourly manager, and then they start in the kitchen, and then they work their way up to being an entry level service manager, kitchen manager, assistant general manager, all the way up to managing partner. So that would be, I guess, more of the vertical, if you will, that I've seen. So Shelly,
Yeah, and then is that something, at Red Robin, as you guys think about the growth of the units and growth of the employees, that you proactively go after, or is it something that happens by coincidence?
We definitely proactively go after it. We've got our internal promotion rate right now is about 65, 70%, which is really incredible.
Right.
And if you think about our tenure as well within our restaurants, our average managing partner, which is like that single restaurant main leader in the restaurant, has anywhere between 10 and 15 years with the company. So people kind of tend to gravitate to that role, love it, and stay in it.
Yeah. I could see from your perspective, both of yours, how coming from a brand that is very hot right now at Kava, but new, you have people who are inside of Red Robins that might be older or been with the company longer than Kava has existed, right? And so that's an interesting dynamic that you have, and I'm sure kind of struck you as very obvious, right, when you first started there. But talk to us a little bit about how you keep people at such a large location after they get hired. So, I think a lot of times in talent and recruiting and HR, we think about things like applicant flow, time to hire, screening, and all these different things. But as I've matured and what I'm hearing more and more from the field is so much of the tenure and success of even the entry level employee, of course, happens after the first day. And even if you make the wrong hire or you're doing poorly on applicant flow, if you reduce turnover on the after somebody gets there, you're able to make things a lot better. So, do you have any special programs in place? Do you have any thoughts kind of around once somebody starts at a Red Robin, how do you keep them long term?
Yeah, it's I can definitely speak to Red Robin. I think Katie would be great to speak from just the experience. Like what,
Yeah.
Katie, like what did you experience and what kept you, in your roles?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, proper training, making sure that I was set up for success and knowing that I had somebody dedicated that was my training buddy, if you will, that I could go and ask those questions that I might not have felt comfortable, like if I was working the grill station or learning how to do that. But overall, I could go and ask them. Also, just creating a welcoming environment, which I think Red Robin does a really great job of doing, is celebrating their new hires and also just creating that welcoming environment, feeling like, yes, I'm excited to be here and they're excited for me to be here. In my experience, is really what kept me in the roles that I was in.
Anything to
And
add
you
to that, Shelly?
Yeah, I would say it's just, I think Katie hit the nail on the head. It's taking care of people. It's basic hospitality. You take care of your people, and the old saying, they'll take care of the business. But, anything from, we try to be flexible with our schedules. We try to think thoughtfully about our schedule. So, a lot of times in our industry, some people might come in for one shift, get sent home when business is slow and called right back to come in. And hey, that's pretty tough if you're catching the bus. So we try to be a little bit more thoughtful with the way that we treat people and the way that we schedule people. And we make sure to include them. Everybody is included at Red Robin, from, the dishwasher in the back of the house all the way up through our chief executive officer. And they're involved and in touch with one another. So just keeping people involved, being thoughtful in the way that we schedule them, and just taking care of our people, I think, is our secret to success.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say like keeping people involved, like what does that mean from a tactical perspective? Is it you get the teams together every week? Is it you have tools to be able to do it? Is it GMs kind of shout down information? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so we've got our CEO goes out on road shows to our restaurants. So our CEO, our CPO, like the big dogs of the restaurants,
Yeah.
And they're out there every single year talking to people, getting their feedback, and actually taking action on it. So a lot of times, like you'll do, we've all been part of companies where you do that engagement survey, and you're like, okay, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
It truly happens at Red Robin because our executive leadership, all the way down, everybody's invested in our team members. And so I think that that's what really makes a difference at our company. That's how I feel. What do you think, Katie?
Yeah, I think so too. And just partnering with like the market leaders too, our market partners, they do different development days. They're always talking to their teams, doing one-on-ones and different things like that as well. So they're always gathering that feedback.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like when you're more in touch and you're having better conversations at the post hire, kind of bringing us back to the pre-hire like talent acquisition side, it helps you in that regard too. Because one, you have to do fewer hires, and two, just as an example, if you know reasons why people are turning over on the back end, it can inform the front end to front load some stuff. So like a good example is if people are leaving and you understand it's because the health benefits aren't right, you can correct those and then not only satisfy that at the job description level, but also boast why your solution might be better or why it's better for you or anything like that. So when you're thinking about talent particularly, and Katie, this might be a question for you, is what have you learned from the field that's made you a better recruiter and helped you find the right people, not just a warm body or somebody with a pulse?
Yeah. So, what I've really learned from our field that's helped me find the right person is how invested they are in their people. And I know that might sound a little cliche, but
Mm-hmm.
there isn't a market partner that I don't partner with that isn't truly invested in their people. And they're willing to, if I have questions about, hey, what does this restaurant specifically need? We always pull up on a call and we iron that out, hammer it out, whatever you want to call it. We talk about it so that way we find the right fit for that restaurant to help complete that team. So that way it helps. I mean, it just helps everybody, just that constant communication.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anything you'd like to add to that, Shelly?
Yeah, I would say it's also, our interviews are a two-way street. We do things like reverse interview days where we invite candidates to interview us and put us in the hot seat. So it's not always the candidate doing the interview. We let them kind of take charge in that because it truly is a partnership. And if the candidate's happy and the hiring manager's happy, it's a great marriage. And so we focus on the full experience.
Yeah, I love that. And usually, just so you guys know, the hourly podcast is only 8 to 10 minutes, but we're at the 15-minute mark. So I think it's a product of a good conversation, as I
Okay.
always say. My last question, and then we can wrap things up. And I ask every single person the same question as they leave: is what was your first hourly job, and did you leave said job gracefully or were you fired? And just note that we've had over the course of the last 6 months some of the funniest stories here, and we've had some of the most serious and inspiring stories here. So no pressure, but it can be in a range of things. Katie, how about you start?
Yeah, so my first hourly job was a hostess with Outback Steakhouse.
Hmm.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm mathing about 12, 14 years ago. And I worked my way up, was doing different market things, and I did leave gracefully and went to retail operations for a little bit. So
Very nice. How about you, Shelly?
So mine wasn't so graceful. I was working as a server at an Italian restaurant called Muro's Restaurant. It was a locally owned restaurant, and so the owner, Rocco Muriel, always had our back. I went to serve a table where a gentleman was not so friendly. He was taking a date out for a date, and he was really trying to impress her and was treating me pretty crappy, pretty bad. And I remember going into the back. I was about in tears, and Rocco Muriel, the owner of the restaurant, came out, and he exited the gentleman out of the restaurant and really stood up for me. And I, while it wasn't quite as graceful, it really set the tone for the type of leader I wanted to be in the restaurant industry. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to protect my people. And what a cool industry to be a part of where you see that. So that was kind of my story, but I guess I left gracefully, but it didn't lead up to being gracefully.
First, I'm sorry that happened to you, that unacceptable behavior. But thank you so much for sharing. Last question is, if somebody wants to learn more about getting a job or joining the Red Robin community, how can they do that?
Yeah, and we have our redrobin.com/careers page that they can go on, and I believe our LinkedIn and Facebook pages as well, right, Shelly?
Absolutely. So they can check us out at Red Robin Careers on Instagram and Facebook or on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, Katie, Shelly, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll have to catch up again soon.
You bet. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome to the Hourly Podcast. In today's episode, Shelly Wilt, Head of Talent Acquisition, and Katie Davis, a talent recruiter, both from Red Robin, discuss their roles in the unique culture of the brand. They share insights on employee engagement, career growth opportunities, and the importance of a supportive work environment. The conversation highlights Red Robin's commitment to training and development, as well as their proactive approach to recruitment and retention. Personal stories from both guests provide a relatable perspective on the challenges and rewards of working within the restaurant industry. Enjoy.